Hey guys, it's Camera Commando, and I am currently hammock camping in the woods. I got my little setup here, got my little ridge line, got my Eno double nest, got some a down quilt on top and another down quilt on the bottom. It's pitch black outside right now. I have this solar light that I'm using to light my sleeping area so you can see me. And but otherwise it is pitch black out here right now. Dark. Can't see anything. I can see the stars, but it is dark. I always wonder what it would be like if there was an EMP or some other kind of disaster. What would we do? When people, are they prepared? Are they prepared for this kind of emergency where there's no power, no anything? You know, what can they do? If you were all by yourself with only the equipment you had with you on your back, how long could you endure? You know, even if you had some food, even if you were able to hunt or fish by yourself, that's one thing. But if you had other people with you, it's a little more labor intensive. You know, let's see. Let me look out here. See if you can see anything. I think you can see anything. It's pitch black. It's dark out there. But just listening to the sounds. Just hear rain. Hear trees. Not that much wind tonight. But it's interesting. Pretty comfortable. Got some polypropylene tops and bottoms. Got a hat on. Fresh socks. Pretty snug in here. Not too much to worry about. Pretty warm. Anyway, let's see what we can film tonight or maybe tomorrow. If anything interesting happens tonight, I'll cut the camera on so you can see or hear. Hopefully not too much will go on. Hey guys, good morning. It's probably about 4:30, 5 in the morning. Sun's starting to come up. I'm in my hammock. Had a pretty good night. Nice and brisk. Probably about 34, 35 degrees last night. I don't think it was freezing, but it was pretty close. But I was nice and cozy inside of my hammock. I wanted to mention a few things about sleeping in a hammock. For those of you who like to camp but have never tried sleeping in a hammock, it really is awesome. The hammock is amazing compared to sleeping on the ground. It takes all the pressure off your back, especially as you get older. You're not really interested in laying on the ground anymore. It's not as fun as when you were a kid. So, but there are a couple of steps that you have to do to sleep comfortably in a hammock, even in the summertime, because temperature can be an issue. So the first thing is you want to have a top quilt or sleeping bag, which is, basically what I got here. It's just it's a blanket. It's a down blanket. It's square that you can zip it together at the bottom if you want, just to put your feet in, like a foot box they call it, and you basically cover yourself with it. Underneath, you're going to want to have a layer under your body. Usually a sleeping pad will work, but you need to have something between you and the hammock itself, especially if it's made out of nylon or if it's some sort of cordage hammock, because the air will cause convection, and you will get cold because the wind will blow underneath you, and your body heat will just escape. So you always need an insulating layer between you and the ground, whether it be a piece of cardboard, a piece of foam, an inflatable mattress, something between you and the hammock. Then underneath that, you need to have another layer underneath the hammock. And those are called underquilts. They're basically like a sleeping bag, also usually made out of down or artificial fillers, insulation. And it clips underneath the hammock to keep the air from blowing on your body. And it's basically, you're in a cocoon, so you're covered on the top from your top quilt, on the bottom from the underquilt. So you have a nice little bubble of insulation that's fully lofted, that's not compressed down. So if you had a down sleeping bag, for example, and you were to lay in a hammock with a sleeping bag, your body weight would compress the insulating layer on the bottom, and you would be cold on the bottom. So it's important to, have that lofted. So here you can see, I apologize if you can't see with the light because it's still kind of dark, but let me see if I can show you. Here I just have my down jacket. I puff up and use as a pillow. Underneath here you can see my insulating layer, which is a one of those metallized on one side and yellow on the other, collapsible sleeping pads. And underneath is just a simple nylon. This is an Eno double nest hammock. And I like it because it goes all the way around. It's got extra materials that you can lay two people in it, but it's good because it kind of folds over and makes a little burrito out of you when you're laying down, and keeps bugs and rain off of you if it's just sprinkling. Now, speaking of rain though, you're going to need a tarp on top of that, or some sort of shelter system above your sleeping bag. That's crucial to keep the rain off of you. And then also you need to have some drip lines on your what they call whoopee strings, or your straps that you use for the hammock. Those are different things. Straps are different from whoopee strings. And I'll do another video on hammock camping later. But basically, if it rains, the rain will run down the straps, and if you don't have little drip lines on it, it'll run down into your hammock and you'll get wet. So you got to be careful. I'll explain that later. But you definitely want to have a tarp or something above you to keep the rain off and keep the wind off. You can angle it. You can make a shelter out of it. I'll show some different ways to do it. But then also, when you go to bed, you want to make sure, so that you stay warm, is they recommend you have like a cup of oatmeal before you go to bed, something warm in your body. And then you want to change your clothes if possible. So like the clothes that you've been wearing during the day, is usually you don't want to sleep in that because they have sweat in them, and when the temperature drops, it'll cool off and you'll get cold. So what we do in the military or in the Boy Scouts is we wear an insulating layer of polypropylene. You see this on my arm? It's a waffle texture. What you usually do before you go to bed is you switch out your current clothes, put on like these long john things, tops and bottoms, and importantly, a dry pair of socks. And you wear an insulating hat like this, and then you can crawl into your sleeping bag or your hammock or whatever you're in, and you'll be dry and you'll be warmer. These are wicking materials, so if you sweat at night, like if you get too warm in your bag while you're asleep, your sweat will evaporate off faster than if you're wearing cotton. Cotton is not recommended for any kind of camping because once it gets wet, you get cold. Wool is better, and synthetics for insulating. I love down products. They're great, but if they get wet, they're not going to take care of you. They're useless if they get wet. So it's something you want to consider. If you're doing some real tactical stuff like bug out, you may want to go with like an artificial what do you call it, insulation. Down is great when you're in civilization, but if your life depends on it, you might want to go synthetic. Just depends. If you can keep it inside a dry bag and you know it's not going to get wet, then it's good. But man, if you were in a airplane crash in a Mooney in Alaska, or in the desert or someplace where you're crashed or stranded, and you might have a water landing or something, down is not going to help you if it gets wet. Just keep that in mind. In addition to that, outside of your hammock, you're going to want to have a guy line like this piece of 550 that helps maintain the shape of your hammock when you're tied in trees or into a tripod. And it's also useful for hanging like your flashlight or something on the line at night, your gear, gloves, dry socks, or whatever, hang socks, so that they can dry out. It's a little handy line. I'll show that later. Anyway, the sun's coming up, so I'm going to get a fire going. I want to get some coffee. Good morning.